Hi guys, welcome to a new video. In this video, we will be doing the drafting process for this really nice bustier dress with a yoke and puff sleeve. If this is something you like, keep watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified whenever I make a new post. Thank you. We'll be starting with the upper part and the front piece, and for that I'll be drafting my shoulder line. After that, I'll be marking my bust point. That's for my vertical measurement. My bust point is 12 inches. The under bust is 16 inches. The waistline is 18 inches, and I'll be adding 1 extra inch for allowance, which makes it 19 inches. I'll repeat the process on the other side, so I'll be able to get a straight line. After which, I'll use my ruler to connect my lines. Now that I have my lines, I'll be labeling bust points. That's my under bust, that's my waistline, and that is the allowance. Moving over to my shoulder line, I'm going to be marking my neck width, which is 3.5 inches, my shoulder, which is 8 inches. I'm going to come down by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope, and I'm going to connect it into the neckline just like that. From the shoulder slope line, I'll mark my armhole line, which is 8.5 inches. And on that line, I'll also mark my shoulder measurement so that I'll be able to get a straight line and then connect it to the shoulder slope, just like I'm doing. To get my armhole curve, I'll be taking the midpoint of that line, and then I'm going to be going in by 0.5 or 0.75. But I'm going in with 0.5. After which, on that line, I'll be marking my bust circumference divided by 4. And then I'm going to connect the 3 points together, just like I'm doing. Now, for my yoke line, which is also my chest line in this case, I'll be using 6 inches because the client wanted the dress to be properly covered. It's for church and she's on the busty side. I'll mark the point and rule a line across. The next thing to do is to get my dart, and for that I'll be marking 4.5 inches across all of my vertical lines except the chest line, which I'll be adding half an inch to and marking 5 inches. So just do the same with whatever measurement it is you're using. Add half an inch to the chest line. After which, connect all your points with a straight line, just like you see me doing. Now, on the part going to my center front, I'm going to be marking half an inch on the waistline and under bust. On the part going to my side front, I'll be marking 2 inches. You can use 1.5 depending on how busty the person you are making this dress for is. After which, I'm going to be connecting my point with a straight line. Then I'm going to be connecting to my bust point. For the half inch, you're just going to connect in what looks like a straight line. And then for the other part, you're going to be using your curve to give it like a cup effect. That's where the bust will sit in. So this is what you will have by the time you are done. Now on my chest line, I'm going to go out by 0.75 on the side of this, and then the part going to the middle, I'm going to go out by 1 inch, and I'm also going to connect this point to meet the bust point, just like I'm doing. Now I'm just marking my neck depth, and then I'm just going to connect it with my curve. Now the bustier area has a little bit of a sweetheart neck effect, so I'm just going to come down by 1.5 inches from my chest line, and then I'm going to be curving it into the 1.5 inches that I came down by to get like a sweetheart shape. Now I'm just going ahead to shade out the area that will be cut out, and then I'll label my yoke. So this is my yoke area. Now I'll go ahead and input my horizontal measurement. Make sure you take into account what you are already cutting out for the dart. So I added the extra 2.5 inches I cut out for the dart on my waistline, added 2 inches joining allowance, and then my actual waist measurement. Then on my bust area, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of the allowance that I'll be cutting out, and then 2 extra inches to serve as my allowance. So there will be no need adding side allowance when I'm cutting from the pattern to the fabric. I hope this makes sense. After doing that, I'll use my ruler to connect all the points together, and this is almost all for the top. The final thing for the upper part of this bustier is to take my side dart, and side dart is usually the difference between your front half length and your back half length. For this I have 18 and 16 and half, so the difference is actually 1.5, and that's what I've actually removed to serve as my side dart. Now that's all. You just go ahead and cut out following the exact lines. Please do that carefully and watch how I'm doing mine. Then go ahead and cut yours like that. And after you're done, this is what you have, and that's the yoke. So you can go ahead and label side front will be cut ×2, and this is the center front, which will be cut on fold. Now for the back, you get a piece of paper and label zip allowance. Take away 2 inches from the side to serve as your zip allowance, just like I've done on this pattern. You draw your shoulder line, which is also your starting point. Here I'll be marking my chest line, and from my chest line I'll be marking my half length, which is 16.5, and I'll also be marking the 1 inch allowance, which makes it 17.5. After marking all my points, I'll get a ruler to extend them to make it visible. The next thing to do is to mark your exact shoulder measurement like you did in front, your neck width, come down by 1 inch to get your shoulder slope, and then connect to your neckline like so. And then for your neck depth, you can use whatever you want, depends on how deep you want it to be, but I use 1.5 inches. And then you're just going to create a curve. Make sure the neckline extends to your zip allowance area. On your chest line, you mark the exact same measurement you have on your shoulder, and then use your ruler to extend the line across. You get your midpoint, and then you go in by half an inch. You mark the point. On your chest line, you also insert your bust circumference divided by 4. You mark the point where it is, and then you connect the 3 points together, just like you did in front. Now for the back line, you're going to be getting your dart, and for that, you're just going to be marking 4.5 inches, and then you're going to be going, after extending the lines, of course, to the chest line, you're going to be going out by half an inch on both sides of your dart line, and then you're just going to mark it like so, and then extend it to your chest line to form like a very sharp, just the way we usually mark our dart. On my chest line, I already have my bust measurement. I'm just going to be adding my 2 inches allowance, just like I did for the front. And on the waistline, I'll be marking my actual waist circumference divided by 2. I'll be adding 1 extra inch for my dart intake, and then 2 extra inch, which is the allowance I've been using throughout. I'll extend like so to create my back bodice pattern. After doing that, I decided to go in by half an inch from the waistline just to snatch my back a little bit and avoid zipper bulge. So I'm just going in by half an inch on both the zip allowance and my back part. You're just going to connect it and just connect it into the zipper allowance in a slant. Then you go ahead and cut it out exactly on the lines, just like I'm doing, and that's all for the back part of this piece. Now that we're done with the back, this is exactly what it looks like. I'm just adding the front, and this is what we have for our front and back pattern. The back will be cut on fold or ×2. Now that I'm done, for the lower part, we don't need a pattern because it's just going to be like a long pencil skirt that you're going to be adding to the upper part. Now you need about 4 yards of fabric for this style, depending on the size. 4 to 5 yards actually, depending on the size of the person you're making this for. Now, because I have a complete 6 yard of fabric, I'm just going to be writing some measurements, and that's what I'll be using to cut out my fabric. And to do that, what I need is my hip circumference divided by 4, and then maybe 2 to 3 inches allowance, the skirt length from my waist to the hem of where I want the dress to stop. That's all you need to cut out your fabric. Now, after cutting out my fabric, the first thing I'm going to mark is my starting point, which is also my waistline. From my waistline, I'm going to be marking my hip line, which is 10 inches. I'll mark the point and then rule a line across. From the waistline, I'm also going to mark my knee measurement, which is 22 inches. This person is on the tall side. After marking, I'll use my ruler to also extend the line across. Now the next thing is to get from my waistline to the hem of this skirt, and I think I used 49 inches, so that's me marking 47 inches, and the remaining 2 inches is going to serve as my allowance, turning allowance. Now for my horizontal measurement, on my waistline, I'm going to go in by my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark the point across. I'll add 1 inch for my dart intake, and then 2 inches for my allowance. On my hip line, I'll also take my hip circumference divided by 4, add 2 inches for my allowance. Now, whatever you have on your hip line, you can choose to take out 2 inches or 1.5 on your knee line just to get that pencil effect. For this style, I actually took out 1.5 inches. And then whatever you have on your knee line, you can just go ahead and repeat the exact same thing on your hemline. The next thing to do is to connect all the points together, just like I'm doing. After I'm done with that, I'll come down by 1 inch or 1.5 on the waistline. I actually use 1.5 for this style, and then just slant it into the side of the waistline, just like I'm doing. This just helps to reduce the bulging underneath that area sometimes when you are done making a straight dress. After that, I'm just going to go ahead and cut out following the lines that I've already made. Now for the back part of this skirt area, you're just going to make sure it is 2 inches wider than the front. That's the only difference. Now I'm just going to be placing the front on the back. So I've mapped out 2 inches for my zipper area. Now for the back, on the waist area, I'll just go up by that 1.5 inches that I came down by for the front. And then I'm just going to mark the points there. I actually need the back to be the actual length, so I'm just going to connect it to the side, just like I'm doing. Now for my zipper allowance, on the waistline, I'm going to go out by 1.5 inches to serve as my zipper area. On the hip line, I'll actually be going out by 2 inches just to create a little more space for the bum. And then from the knee line to the hemline, I'm actually going to go out by 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to connect the lines, and you can see that there's a little space for the bum. It's called like a butt allowance. And that is actually all for the back part. I'll just go ahead and cut out on the lines that I have already made. After I was done, this is what it looks like. I'll raise up the front piece, and this is what we have for the back piece. So we are done with this. The next thing to do is to go ahead and cut out the lining piece. So you're just going to place this on your lining and cut out the exact same thing that you have. Cut the exact same thing on your lining piece. Now I've gone ahead to cut the exact same thing on my lining, and this is what it looks like. The only difference is that your lining ought to be a little bit shorter than your actual fabric, because you're going to be turning the fabric up. I don't know if this makes sense, but please just watch what I'm doing. Since my allowance is 2 inches, I'm going to be cutting out 1.5 inches from my lining, just so it is shorter than the actual fabric and it looks neater because it will be turned up. You repeat the same thing for the lining of both the front and the back part of this skirt area. This is exactly how it should be looking when you are done cutting out a bit of the lining piece, so it will be turned upward by the time you are done sewing. And that's all for the drafting of this style. Please stay tuned for the sewing video. Thank you very much, and see you in my next video. Bye.